Hello and Assalamualaikum. We are from Group 2. Would like to present to you about the domestic violence. Before that, I would like to introduce you our group members. I will start with myself. My name is Aida Natasha binti Rosli.
Hello, my name is Muhammad Aiman bin Zainul.
Hi, my name is Nur Isabel Kis binti Sukri.
My name is Siti Nofarsha Farhana binti Abdul Ghani.
Hi, my name is Amira binti Muhammad.
What is domestic violence?
Domestic violence means acts of violence against a spouse or ex-spouse. It consists of physical and sexual harassment, verbal violence, which are swearing and profanity, intimidation, emotional and financial harassment, or neglect. Domestic violence, usually recurring and becoming a victim, is more severe and persistent even after divorce. This is because the abuser wants to stay in power and wants to control the victim. Most abusers are males and the victims are women or children. This domestic violence needs to be eradicated immediately as it has a detrimental effect on the victims. The impact on the victim is divided into two, namely physical and mental injuries. When we look at the situation nowadays, cases of domestic violence are increasing every year. Since the movement control order was created, it has also contributed to the increase in such cases. 9,015 cases of domestic violence have been recorded during the MCO. There are several external and internal factors that lead to domestic violence. So, let's see what's the factors of domestic violence. The first external factors that lead to domestic violence is anger issues. According to the Radel, Pina and Vasquez 2017, domestic violence may happen as a result of anger or dissatisfied feeling that were long buried and have finally been released in certain situations. Based on Nurul Nadia Abdul Aziz and all 2018, most of the women like to provoke the men until the guys become angry. Majority is men who have anger issues that have become one of the factors that leads them to commit domestic violence against their own partners. Usually, men who have anger or hot temper problems become one of the factors that drive them to commit domestic violence against their own partner. According to Radel and al. 2017, some of the factors that lead to anger issues by some of the people are actually caused by their own self-needs of being known by others through physical actions such as by bullying.
Another external factor that leads to domestic violence that I would like to share is that the different gender equality between married. According to Nurul Nadia Abdul Aziz and other researchers, society often has this certain mindset where they assume that the husband should be the only one who support or provide for the family, and the wife should only stay at home and be a housewife. Therefore, wives that have an income often become the victims. Next, according to Atkinson and colleagues, most close-minded husbands did not like it when the wife had the same amount of money or salary than them. This situation will somehow create an uneasy feeling by the husband, as they would see this as something that can jeopardize their position as the head of the family. Other than that, a husband who thinks that they should be the only one who earns the majority of the income is potentially to commit violence against their partner who has a higher income. This happens as they think that by being aggressive or violent towards their partner will somehow make their wife respected them, since they already losing in terms of providing the most income for the family. This part is according to Nurul Nadia Abdul Aziz and her colleagues. And lastly, according to David and Greenstein, they say that most husbands possess some kind of ability to silence their other family members as they are the leader in the family. Therefore, any unacceptable behavior that was being done by the husband will be ignored. Unacceptable behaviors that can be continuously being done by this irresponsible husband is such as continuously being angry, being so aggressive towards This may include hitting their wife if somehow their wife did not follow their order, use curse words all the time inside the house, and also being unreasonable over small things that happens in the household. To conclude, the external factor that me and Ida has explained just now is that we could really see that uncontrollable anger can easily lead to the violence. Not just that, gender inequalities also have a certain influences in the domestic violence where, since men are the head of the family, they feel like they are more powerful than other family members and should be in control of everything, including things such as in making decisions in the
I will explain the third point, which is parental stress can lead to the occurrence of domestic violence. It is the external factors that lead to domestic violence. According to Barceli et al. 2021, the quarantine period of the COVID-19 has made some parents feel stressed. Due to that, they tend to be violent towards all the family. Barceli et al. 2021 also has stated that domestic violence between the household members will increase due to the time spent between them has increased drastically at home during lockdown than at school or at work. Besides that, the domestic violence can also be occurs because of the parents feel stressed when adapting their child's online learning process during COVID-19. The last one is Bhatia et al. 2020 highlighted that difficulty that the parents face when finding the income for the family can cause them to be violent toward their children. The fourth point is unemployment issue can be a factor of domestic violence, especially during COVID-19 lockdown. This point also external factors of domestic violence. According to Barceli et al. 2021, the cases of domestic violence have increased due to financial problems. It is proved by data on domestic violence in Italy during COVID-19 lockdown. This is because the people are getting lower salaries than their normal salaries. Barceli et al. 2021 also has emphasized that when an individual is facing a stressful situation because of the unemployment, it may lead them to act aggressively towards their partner at home. Lastly, Barceli et al. 2021 highlighted that the individual who lost their jobs and at the same time have a big responsibility towards their family will have uncontrolled stress, and it can lead to the domestic violence. The conclusion that I can create is the stress that parents encounter as well as unemployment issues will have an impact on domestic violence.
Another internal factor that contributed to domestic violence is home isolation, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Arumugam 2020 Movement Control Order MCO, which is an order by the Malaysia government in implementing home isolation as response to the coronavirus, or also known as COVID-19 pandemic, has raised concern about health and income that can cause an increase in abusers' urge to impose their power and their control that leads to the domestic abuse to their own partner. Arumugam 2020 also stated that the Women and Family Development Ministry and the NGOs that contribute to domestic violence cases also have recorded that there are increasing numbers of domestic violence cases in the since the quarantine was imposed in March 2020. This is due to the stress that the abusers need to face while being isolated. Women's Aid Organization Advocacy and Communication Officer Tan Hyang Lee has said that the domestic violence mostly happen because the survivors become financially dependent on the abusers as they may not be able to work during the MCO. Home isolation actually has given a wide chances for the abuser to be involved in violence towards their own partner during the pandemic, as they are required to be quarantined together as an effort in stopping the spreading of the COVID-19 virus. Therefore, it has indirectly allowing for the perpetrator to physically, emotionally or even sexually abuse their partner in a marriage. Pressure on the social and psychological also can become an internal factor that may influence the domestic violence. It is because it has been recorded domestic violence has happened to the concerned families and communities as they are undergo a social and psychological pressure during the coronavirus pandemic. Next, Armageddon 2020 also has stated that the COVID-19 pandemic that led the government to implement MCO, where outside contact has been minimized, and it has opened up to some individual in becoming the victims of domestic violence from their abusive partner more easily. During the pandemic, the issues from domestic violence, mental health, and also discrimination has arisen because of the survivors' inability to socialize and leave their home at their will. Apart from that, it also said that due to the social pressure, it may cause the survivors to sink into a depression, which can cause them to be exposed in domestic violence by their own partner. To summarize, people should be more concerned about their closest people during the MCO because being isolated in the house with the abusers, as well as facing social and psychological pressure can have a negative impact on the survivors of the domestic violence.
Next internal factor of domestic violence is low self-esteem between victim and abuser, make domestic violence worse. According to Fabian, usually victims will always feel themselves unworthy of being loved and no one wants them. Next is they are more willing to accept abuse in the hope that the abuser will change. Fabian also mentioned that abusers also will tend to hide their poor self-esteem by demeaning others. Lastly, Fabian says self-esteem problems commonly happen to individuals who have low academic performance. Last internal factor of domestic violence is domestic violence can happen to an individual who previously has been abused. Based on Fabian, the cycle of abuse is frequently difficult to break without help. Domestic violence survivors are more likely to be victimized again or to abusers themselves. Fabian also stated that domestic violence survivors frequently believe they deserve to be abused. According to Fabian, those who have experienced abuse will become an abuser because they are very angry and upset with their own fate.
Considering all the facts, there are external factors such as anger issues, different gender inequalities, parental stress, and unemployment, and also the internal factors such as home isolation, social and psychological pressure, low self-esteem, and previous history of abuse that contribute to domestic violence in a marriage. Domestic violence victims frequently decide not to disclose their abuser because they fear the consequences that they will get from them if they do so. Hence, if you are the victims of domestic violence, taking action is the only way to stop this issue. The victims should inform about this matter to someone that they trusted, whether it's a friend, family, or even non-governmental organizations that are related for handling the domestic violence cases to seek help. A married individual should always know what are the limits that their partner can do in a marriage to ensure that they could recognize any abuse act that their partner are doing towards them. It is important to always remember everyone has their rights to make their own decision for their own body, and no one deserves to be controlled and abused even from your own partner. In Malaysia, the women that have been abused by their partner can contact the Women's Aid Organization, as they have provided shelter and crisis support for free for the victims and also their children. Last but not least, we can say that protecting yourself from continuously being the victims of domestic violence is needed, as this is to help ensure that you and especially your children can have a good future. That's all from us. Thank you.
great to catch up.
Yeah. Oh, can you share that banana bread recipe?
Oh, sure. It's actually my mom's banana bread recipe, but it's pretty foolproof and it's super easy.
Well, I appreciate it. I know your mom is a great baker, so I should be good.
The trick is to grease the pan really well and use overripe bananas. That's my mom's tip.
Okay, good to know. I can't wait to try it. So thanks again for the recipe.